people this data was, just so we can be on the same page real
let me
quick?
let me let me let me say what I'm talking about, and then you can tell
Okay,
me.
yeah,
Professor
that's what I'm
Olivia
saying.
Petrovich, who is a psychologist, I believe, she says that preschoolers how have an inclination towards something that's superior than them. She doesn't conclude that it's a god or anything like that, but she says that preschoolers were about more 7 times more likely to say that God created them, or something more powerful created them than human beings. Professor Deborah Kellerman says that the children have a propensity of believing no, of believing that nature is designed rather than random arrangements of these molecules. Okay, Professor Justin Barrett, who's an anthropologist, who says that children's believe in what he calls a natural religion. So this is what actually the research is suggesting. So if you're going to come up with an evolutionary explanation for this, then believe me, you're going to have so many problems doing that.
The evolutionary explanation I was giving was that
I
humans
know.
in general, not
I heard
I'm
it.
saying humans in general from a basis point, not just preschoolers. I mean, preschoolers could actually be a good uh, point to this, is that humans in general, if they don't know something, the idea of I don't know is a very uncomfortable thing. It's something that you have to like get out of your comfort zone. It took me a while to get out of the comfort zone of just saying I don't know, and
She says that's
I've come
exactly
into
what she says. You're proving her research. She says that atheism, non-belief in the existence of divine, is an acquired position. That's exactly what she said.
it's not an acquired position; it's a default position.
Yes. I'm not saying this, by the way. You can go out and debate her. This is
Oh,
this is the words. I got
I'm not
verbatim
disagreeing.
quotes.
I'm not disagreeing with the research at all. I'm just saying that atheism isn't an acquired position; it's a default position. It is just
What?
us. It's just us people will make will move from that default. We don't stay on default. We move on default. It's like
What's the fault? What's the fault here? Believing in supernatural?
okay.
Is that
Here's a good
is that what fault?
here's a good example of what I mean by it's a default position. Um, Remember back when before you were a kid, before you knew what the idea of bear was, the notion of what a bear is, or anything. It could be any animal, bear, anything. You didn't know what it was. That doesn't mean that you start off not believing bear. It means that you didn't know what bear was. It wasn't till you were
Sir. For
shown
me to know what beer
that
is, hold on,
move.
sir. You're
That's
making
what
a
I mean by
false
default.
equivocation. Sir, you're making a false equivocation. I'll tell you what.
How's that?
For me to know what beer is, I need some external information to know that what actually beer is, right? But here, the research is suggesting that it's innate. It doesn't require any
Yes, but
information transfer. This belief is innate within human beings. It doesn't
yeah,
require you to tell them that Jesus
because
is God or Yahweh is
know,
God.
because a preschooler is not going to have the knowledge of understanding of of pretty much natural phenomena of how things can come about. So, but that's my exact
Oh, yeah.
point
Okay, tell me how
is
can
that we
things
don't
come about?
know, therefore we try to pinpoint pieces together. I
What?
and that's how human nature. You can go back in history and see this. We when we didn't know
What?
what lightning was, we assumed it was a higher
You're
being
talking about
creating
God of the
lightning.
gaps. You're talking about God of the gaps,
I'm not talking
sir.
about God of the gaps. I'm talking
Yes,
about how
this is
humans
what actually
have
the
acted.
argument the arguments you're presenting is actually what Richard Dawkins said in the God Delusion. He says that we didn't know about the lightning, how lightning happened, therefore it's God. We didn't know how the rain
Did we not
fell,
assert that?
therefore it's
Is
God.
that
It's
not
God of the
is
gaps.
that not what history has shown us? From we have documents. I have studied early in history for a while now. We can go back to Mesopotamia. They believed in weather gods. They did not understand. In fact, in Mesopotamia, there was a river that flowed through, And if they believed that you were convicted of a crime, they would make you go through that river. And if you got caught up into the current, they saw you as guilty. And if you made it past the current, they said that that current, that God
Sir,
who
that,
who controlled the
sir,
waters,
sir,
saw you as
your
innocent.
arguments, sir, your arguments fell apart in the very beginning because you are
How
trying
so?
to conflate. Hold on. Let me speak now. You're trying to
Okay.
conflate science with God. When science, all science can do us that is it can tell us or it can show us how things work, but the
Oh,
concept of God is there to tell us why things exist, which
but,
science does not have the potential
but that's
to
not what.
delve into.
But that's not what
You're
I was
making a
saying.
false
I'm just saying, but that's
false
not what I
dichotomy.
was saying. I'm demonstrating of what history's shown that people will literally try to make connections to something that they don't know about yet.
I don't disagree
It
with
may be
you.
the God of gaps that they're using, but that's just human nature. And that's where my analogy when I was talking to Michael was about being and this is primal. This is before even God become into existence. It's being into the wilderness, and you see that tall grass move. You see that tall grass move, and you run because you assume it's a predator. You see that tall grass move, and you don't assume it's a predator or not, and you run. But if you see that tall grass move, and you go, "I don't know that's a predator," the first two are have a more likely chance of survival than the third one because eventually that's going to be a lion or a predator in that when the tall grass is going to get you. So making a connection before you
Sir,
have
you're trying
evidence
to do
for
it an
is an evolutionary
adaptive
benefit.
survival value. Sir, you're trying to give it an adaptive survival value and you're trying to
It
fit
does. How
this
doesn't it?
concept in. Now,
How
how
does
come?
it
Then
not
how are
have a
you gonna
survival value?
okay, then how on earth does it build on the temples in the mosque spend our days worshipping something that's not true? How does this help our survival? How does it help the survival of a monk who goes onto the mountain, spend days, weeks, months, years together and worshipping something that's not true? How on earth does it help their survival?
Because
So I've heard these arguments, sir. So can you wait?
because what can benefit your survival then may not be a beneficial survival now. Things
Sir,
do
that's not how
change.
natural selection works. That's not how
It
natural
certainly
selection works.
does.
Natural selection
You understand
selects
that
just
natural
for
selection
survival.
works. You understand that natural selection works on the environment that you live in, and if that environment changes, it can be a deterror to your survival, not something that supports it, right?
Sir, natural selection just helps us to survive. That's all natural selection is. Organisms have
And wait,
offsprings.
finish that entire thing. You got to finish the entire thing. Natural selection helps us survive in the environment that we are in. So if that environment changes, that thing that can help us survive could be a detriment to our survival. So the thing that I say about the
So natural
how you
selection
can
can
come to
lead
something that you don't know about can help you survive can eventually change and be a detriment to your survival, which is the case here. This is why you can say
okay.
that
So
humans may have a
what you're
natural
actually
ability to
saying,
take something that's not based
okay,
on
okay.
age
So what
that
you're
can help
actually
them
here
back
saying,
then, but it may not help you now.
sir, so you're actually saying is this. I mean, you're saying that in the past we
I
didn't
know
know
what
how
I'm
the universe
saying.
works. Yeah? Let's
I
calm
know
down,
what I'm
okay?
saying. I
I'm
don't
just
need
trying
you
to
to
have this.
explain what I'm saying.
Just calm down. I'm sorry if I'm
I'm
making you
calm.
a bit. I'm sorry, okay? Let's connect with one another, okay?
Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay? So correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying
Okay.
that at times we needed to have these beliefs about supernatural because it helped us survive. Now we do not know it, therefore we don't need it now, right? This is what you are
I
saying. This is
never.
the argument.
Okay. You want me to correct you when you were wrong about my saying. I never said that we had a belief in supernatural that helped us believe. I'm saying that if we made a decision back in our primal states a decision that wasn't based on evidence or logical reason. It helps us survive because if we stood there in the tall grass and said, "I don't know what that thing in the grass. I don't know what's making that grass move," and just stayed there, it will come a chance to where a predator will kill us. But if we see that grass move and we ran, it helped our survival. It has nothing to do with supernatural. It has everything to do with basing something that we had no evidence for, and
Sir, that's not.
that
First,
helped us then survive. But now that we have
first,
moved on and
now
have
allow me to talk. Allow me to talk. First, that's
okay,
not what research is saying. Okay, that's not. That's
that is
completely a red
exactly what
herring.
research is saying. Don't
Okay,
tell me that's not what research is saying. That's exactly what
but
research is saying. I can we
that's
can
not.
prove this right
The
now.
Professor Justin Barrett. Look, I'm gonna quote you verbatim, right? So that we can have a better idea of it. Professor Justin Barrett is saying that kids believe in natural religion. He's not saying that we used to fear something or then it helps us to develop our survival. It doesn't say that. Secondly, what you are saying here
Wonderful.
is that natural selection, so natural selection, can natural selection lead us to false beliefs?
Can natural selection lead us to false beliefs? I believe that
Yes.
natural selection, if it benefits us, can lead us to make are more prone to make false beliefs, but not that natural selection causes us to have false beliefs. It can lead us
Okay.
to make false beliefs,
So
just like the
so
tall grass
natural
movement,
selection.
but it does not
So
mean that
so
natural selection causes us to have false beliefs.
Okay, so natural selection does not care whether the belief is false or true as long as it helps us survive, right?
If it's beneficial for the species to survive.
Okay. So we can't know whether our beliefs, our notions, or our predispositions, which we have today, is true or false.
If we're talking about the argument of how we could survive, we certainly can. I know that we can make the decision if I go and drink bleach, that I'm not going to survive because there's certainly
What? Sorry?
because we have the knowledge of we have that knowledge now, and it's through people actually drinking bleach and dying, or even knowing the
So how
chemical
do you know that?
compounds of doing
How do you
this.
know that? How do you know that?
Because
Because natural
how do
selection,
we
you can't
know
even
that?
claim. You can't even claim that to have knowledge because natural selection does not care for truth. All natural selection cares is for survival. So how can you claim to have knowledge? In fact, how could you even claim that you have rational?
You
You have a
understand that having
rational
the
mind,
ability to have knowledge and have conscious thoughts is a benefit in survival, correct?
sir. But natural selection does not care for that. We are the product
It
of
certainly
natural
does.
selection. Natural selection does not. You agreed with me. Natural selection do not care for truth. So how could you even claim to have the potential to know truth when we are the product of this natural
Are you
selection?
living in a house right now? Are
Yes.
you in a house right now? Do you have clothes?
Yes.
Do you eat food? Is that not based on knowledge? Does that not help you
What?
survive?
That's survival. That's not knowledge, but quantum
Okay, that's natural
mechanics. Going
selection.
onto the plane,
That's
going
natural
onto the
selection right
space, onto
there. Your knowledge is
the
helping you survive. Because you are
sir,
in a house, you are eating food, you have clothing because it benefits your survival. And that's based on knowledge of how to survive.
sir. Okay, let's start it once more. Natural selection does not care for truth. All it cares is for survival, right? Do you agree with this?
The natural selection, I don't think natural selection cares about survival. Natural selection just tells us of how organisms go on to. Is that an organism that is more beneficial in the environment that they live in has a higher chance of spreading their genes than ones
Genes.
that
Okay.
don't?
Right. So it's all about survival, right? Spreading
Just how
genes,
knowledge
propagating.
helps a being
Okay.
survive more.
Are you gonna follow me or not? Or
I am following
will
you. I'm
then
just explaining to you what this
you're not.
is.
You just keep on talking and not allowing me to talk. So let's
Okay.
accept the basics here, right? So natural selection cares for survival. It's all about it's
No,
all against all.
no,
It's all about
that's wrong. That's wrong right there. I'm sorry I don't keep speaking over you. You're trying to make this thing here that's not right. Natural selection doesn't even really care about survival. Now, only thing that natural selection even states is that a being in its environment that it's prone to survive in has a higher chance of surviving. That's why you don't see penguins in the Amazon rainforest, because they don't have a higher chance of survival. That's why
I'm gonna
it's that thing. It's that they live into the environment that they live in, or not live in the environment they live in. That a species more suited in the environment that they live in has a better chance of survival. It has
okay,
better chances of passing on their genes.
okay.
That's how
So
knowledge
and
is a
oh
benefit.
my God, we are not talking about knowledge. So can we please stick to something first and then go on? Okay, we are not
Okay.
talking about knowledge here now. We're talking about natural selection. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make that
I believe.
understanding.
I believe. I'm gonna quote to you a professor called Professor Henry Gee, who is a senior journal in
Is
the
he a
Oxford
prophecy?
University, I believe. Henry Gee, you can search him. You can search him on Google.
But are you
He
saying he?
says
Are you saying? I'm sorry, I might have misheard you. Are you saying he's a philosopher or a professor?
he's a paleontologist, I believe.
Okay.
Yes. So what he actually says in that is, there is no difference. Human beings are no more complex than a bacteria. The highest rationale of bacteria and the high is survive to reproduce, and the highest rationale of human beings is to survive and reproduce, right? And the main driving force behind all of this is natural selection. So yes, the natural selection is all about survival. Organisms have offsprings. Those who are fitter, who are stronger, will survive. And the main force and the mere drive behind all of this is natural selection. So
I
it's
would
all
say that
about
natural.
survival. So don't tell me it's not
It,
about
it,
survival.
it seems like you're trying to make natural selection a certain force. It's not really a certain force. It's more of this.
Drive. Right.
It's more of an ideal that a species that is more suited in its environment will have the better chance of survival. Not that natural selection drives them to survive. A species
Right.
that is more. And in fact, natural selection eliminates a lot of other species because they're not suited in the environments that they are in. Or they may have been suited in the environments they're in, but because of certain not climate changes, like not like climate change, like the world's case, but like certain environment changes could detriment certain species, but can also give rise to other species. It all
Right.
depends on if they are suitable and then surviving in that environment. Natural selection does not give a shit about if you survive or not. It's just a process of how things comes about, not that it
Yes.
cares that they come about.
Yes. So fundamentally, it's all about survival, right?
Are you talking about natural selection? 'Cause I just told you that it's not fundamentally about survival because it doesn't care about survival. It just dictates of how species can rise. It's how species go about. Is that the ones that are more suited will pass on their genetic codes and breed.
To do what? It's
To do
you're
what?
you're making my point. To do what? To survive more and reproduce more, right?
I That is the main goal for species, but that's not what natural selection is saying. Natural selection is
That's
just
what.
telling you a process, not driving that process.
So yeah. So do you agree with me now here?
That natural selection just tells us how a process works, not is the driving process. I agree with that.
Natural selection helps organisms to survive and reproduce.
Natural selection tells us how these organisms survive and reproduce, not that it does help us survive and reproduce. It's an explanation, not a drive.
It's an explanation, not a drive.
it is an explanation of how species go about. It's telling us that a species that is more suited in its environment has a higher chance of passing on its genes and continuing on that survival. It's not driving that survival, it's an explanation of how it does it.
So, so here, what does natural selection actually cares for?
Natural selection doesn't care for anything. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's like asking me, what does the theory of gravity care for? The theory of gravity doesn't care for anything. It's an explanation. It's not a thinking on a higher being. It's an explanation.
I don't remember. I can call you that. I read some of the documents of Professor Masatoshi Nai, and he clearly says this. He
I
clearly
don't
says
care what
that
they
natural
say.
selection.
I'm not debating them. I'm talking to you about this.
So I'm gonna call you them because they are the experts, right? I'm gonna make my own
Yeah, and that's
presuppositions
called
and then
argument from
shoot it at
authority.
what?
If I wanted to debate them, I would have went on their websites and tried to talk to them.
So we're discussing here what? We're discussing the academic work here, right? We're discussing truth, and truth is what we know from academia, right?
Truth is what we know from academia. I already explained to you
Yes.
what my idea of what truth is. Truth is something
No, we
that
are. I'm
is
talking about
falsifiable.
this normal truth. Yes, that's what the experts are saying. I don't know. We're going nowhere with this.
Then
Anyways,
maybe
let's
remember when
go
we
back
first
to
started
this.
this was the idea that about children having this natural thing, and I think a more reasonable idea for the children having this more what you said these experts called what you called a nature god. I would say children don't know better. These preschoolers, so you said they were preschoolers, they don't know better, so they would definitely assert a higher being. We can I can go down to a preschool right now and ask how many of you believe in a Santa Claus, and I'm sure they all will. Does that mean that the idea of Santa Claus exists or better? Or does
The idea
the
of
idea of a
Santa Claus,
supernatural
the
exists
idea of
anymore?
Santa Claus, sir, you're not understanding my point. The idea of Santa Claus requires information transfer. For me to know what Santa Claus is, I need to know about the Bible. I need to know about Jesus Christ.
No,
I
you
need to
don't.
about all of these things, right?
No, you
But the
don't.
beliefs
You
professors are
don't.
talking about is first it is cross cultural. It's
You
not
don't
based
need.
on a specific culture.
You don't need all those things to know what Santa Claus is. The only thing you need to know about Santa Claus is that he comes on the 25th.
Sir,
He goes throughout the
if I
world
go to
and
the
drops off
China,
presents.
sir, hold on. If I go to the China and go into the school and ask children, do you know what Santa Claus is? They're gonna say no because they have never heard of anything like Santa
Okay,
Claus. If I
okay,
go into
but if
India,
I but here's the counter to that. If you go to a school in China and say, "Do you know what Santa Claus is?" and they say no, and then you say Santa Claus is a fat guy. He loves milk and cookies. He
yes.
drops
Now
off presents.
this is
You
called
don't
this is
need
what I
the
was talking about.
Bible or anything of
This is
that to explain what Santa Claus
this
is.
is what I was talking about, sir. This is what I was talking about. This idea of Santa Claus requires information transfer. It requires somebody to tell you who Santa Claus is. Then I would know. I would say, yes, I believe in Santa Claus. But the professor, the research doesn't say this. It says a non-human cause, a designer, something that has designed the universe.
So are
That's
you
the
telling
point.
me? So you're telling me during this research that the children were all saying, I don't know, it must have been a creator or a hybrid. You don't think that they would have any sort of family influence on that, or because I already explained to you how the idea that if they don't know that they might have to put into an answer.
How do
So
we
are you
do
saying that they
science?
would not have that kind of influence?
The way we do science is this. We take a natural phenomena, okay? We take a natural phenomena, we hypothesize it and try to verify it and then come up and write some peer-reviewed journals, right? That's science. Now here we have a phenomena that exists in nature, which is children have a tendency of believing something that's non-natural, okay? Now you have to
Like
explain
Santa
this.
Claus.
What?
Yeah, like Santa Claus. Just because children have a
So did you
tendency to
understand
believe
what I
something
said? Sir,
unnatural
did you
does
understand what I
not
said?
prove that unnatural
So what did they
exists.
say about Santa Claus? What did they say about Santa Claus?
What do they say about Santa Claus? What do
What did
children say
I
about
said
Santa
about
Claus?
Santa Claus? So
What do you
what
say?
did I said about Santa Claus?
No, I extrapolated from what you said. You said that children have
No,
a natural thing of believing the unnatural, and I said
I
like
did,
Santa Claus.
I did respond to that. I said, for me to know what Santa Claus is, I need somebody to tell me or teach me or indoctrinate me with the notion of Santa Claus.
Exactly.
But the
You need
reason,
somebody to teach you or tell you or indoctrinate
yes,
you. So
fine,
are you saying these
right. But the
preschoolers there
research
would
here,
also been taught and told and indoctrinated into believing this supernatural idea?
yes. No, no, no. That's
Okay,
not what. That's not what.
that's what you
That's
literally
not
just
what
said.
Professor Justin Barrett says. Let me quote you verbatim. Then you can have a very good idea. Okay. So I'm not here to win an argument, okay? Do not, take me on that. I'm not here to win an argument with you. I'm here to have a logical, valid discussion. This is what Professor is saying, okay? Scientific research on children's developing minds and supernatural beliefs suggests that children normally and rapidly acquire mind that facilitate belief in supernatural agents. Particularly in the first year after birth, children distinguish between agents and known agents. So here, no more indoctrination, nothing like that at all. Understanding agents as able to move themselves in a purposeful way to pursue goals. They are keen to find agency around them, even
Yeah.
given a even given a scant evidence. Not long after their first birthday, babies appear to understand that agents but not natural forces or ordinary objects can create order out of disorder. This tendency to see function and purpose plus an understanding that purpose and order to come from minded beings makes children likely to see natural phenomena as intentionally created. Who is the creator? Children knows people are not the best candidates. It must have been a supernatural. Children are born believers of what I call natural religion. This is verbatim quotation of the
Yeah,
book.
because the children don't know better yet. The from what you start saying that they're able to
Right? It's not
go
talking
back
about
to
anything Santa Claus. It's not talking about Shiva. It's not talking about Allah. It's not talking
yeah,
about Jesus. It's talking
because
about natural religion.
they understand pattern wise. That's the biggest thing. A 1 year old is going to cry for his bottle because the 1 year old knows that if it cries, it will get fed. It will get its bottle, and a 1 year old can cry differently when it cramps his pants, and the parent will pick up and it'll change it. It picks up pattern wise. So when it picks up pattern wise, so then when it gets older and it starts figuring out, looking around the world, it can't figure stuff out, and it's being told like I can guarantee you, some of these children are probably being raised religious when it comes to more understanding. They can understand language. That's also how language is about, is pattern recognition. And then they figure out these certain patterns. So that when they look around nature and they can't figure out what the pattern is of how A becomes B, they are going to assert something as something being supernatural, as
Yes,
human nature is, and that's what I was explaining to you during the evolution wise of why that is. It is
sir.
all based on pattern recognition.
Sir, let me quote you another research. I think it will extract this idea of children's 1 year old and all sorts of notions. Yeah, this research was based on was done on 2352 North American adults, and the research was done by Elisa Jarnfeld, Canfield, Deborah Kellerman. The title, The Divided Mind of a Disbeliever. Intuitive beliefs about nature as purposefully created among different groups of non-religious agents. Yeah, this is what the sample included religious and non-religious participants. The procedure involved a speeded creation task, which was a particular picture-based procedure devised to measure adults automatic and reflective tendencies to endorse natural phenomena as purposefully made. So it's not about preschoolers. It's not about 1 year old. It's about human beings in general, right?
Yeah, but it all seems to keep on leading back to what I'm saying is people don't
What?
know, therefore they're going to try to put something in
Okay,
there.
tell me, what do you know? How did the universe came to be? Tell me. You tell me.
How did the universe? Are you talking about how the universe came to be, or are you trying to talk about the origins of the Big Bang? That's the two completely
No,
different
no.
things.
Tell me. How did the universe came to be? Do you accept the beginning of the universe?
The Big Bang Theory, yes, I do
Yes.
accept
So
it.
how did the universe came to be? Tell me.
1 second, I'll break out my notes that I written down by hand here.
Yes, yes. Go on. Take help from wherever
Audience,
source
I
you
hope
want.
you're ready. You're about to have a good little science experiment here, a little science talk.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm gonna hear that. Don't worry. Go on.
About 13.798 billion years ago, all of space, all of matter, and all of energy that exists in our known universe was contained in a volume less than 1 trillionth of the size of the point of a pen. Conditions were so hot that the basic forces of nature that collectively describe the universe were unified. For reasons unknown, these sub-point sizes of cosmos began to expand. When the universe was a piping hot 10 to the 30th
So I know
degree
everything of
at
it.
a
Do not read me this. I know. Don't waste your time. The question was, how did the universe came to be?
I'm telling you how the universe came to be.
Now you're talking about after Big Bang, what happened? How did the forces of nature? How did the matter and the time and everything began? Right? But I'm talking pre-Big Bang. How? What was there? What
That's why I asked
created?
you at
What
the
gave
very
birth to the universe?
beginning if you're talking about after before the Big Bang, and the answer is we don't know. I don't. I think honestly, the logical thing of saying what's before
How
the
can
Big
you?
Bang
How
is
come?
only
How
be
come you make a
logical.
truth claim and say? How come you make a truth
Have
claim
I
and
made a
say
truth claim?
children's? Yes, children's
When did I make a
believing all
truth
sorts of
claim?
things. Yes, you
When
did.
did I make a truth? When did I make a
When
truth
I
claim about
cited
the Big
this,
Bang and how the
when
universe
I
came?
cited this evidence for belief in supernatural being natural, then you said it must have been
I
this,
gave
it
you
must
an
have been that,
explanation.
it must have
I
been that.
didn't give
When you
you
do
a
not have
truth
any
claim.
explanation for the
I
beginning of
gave
the
you an
universe,
explanation.
you did not. How
I
come
did
you
not.
gave me you talked you strawman my argument and tried to,
How did I
I mean,
strawman it? I went off
yes,
of
you
what
did.
you were
You
saying.
you you gave me biological explanation, and then you talked about Santa Claus and then talked about the
Because because you were saying that kids were believing in supernatural things,
sorry,
and I don't see that
no,
as something to be irrelevant because children can believe in Santa Claus because that's a supernatural thing
sir.
as
Again,
well.
you're going in the same way once more. You're going in the same rabbit hole once again. I said to you, it's not about Santa Claus. It's about
And I explained that
something that
too.
created the universe. Santa Claus needed information transfer. But here, it doesn't talk about Santa Claus. It talks about something that's innate within us, which makes us
And I
recognize that the
already
universe.
explained to you how that innate in us came about or how it could have came about. And you denied that as well.
And you gave me the evolutionary explanation, I believe, which you don't understand.
I don't. I gave you the explanation, but you believe I don't understand the explanation that I gave you.
Absolutely. When I cited Professor Masatoshi Nai, you said, "Oh, I'm not going to hear that. I'm not going to debate that." Then what? I'm not a biologist. I've studied philosophy of biology a bit. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cite you experts to support my ideas or my arguments. And by the way, natural selection is one among six models of evolution. People call it a godly force. People do not even believe it. There is a professor called Professor, I don't remember, James Shapiro. He said that natural selection does not even work. I mean, it's something that's taken as divine kind of thing, right? He believes in his own mechanism called natural genetic engineering. There is mutation-driven evolution. There is evolution via self-organization. There is Lamarckian evolution, and all of them are making mark in molecular biology. So I don't know what did you said. What arguments did you make?
What argue? What arguments I make
Yes.
about how humans can come about of this supernatural religious ideas because it was an earlier evolutionary standpoint or evolutionary benefit to base stuff not on evidence but on not in
No, it
belief,
doesn't benefit.
just not knowing
No,
what
it doesn't
something's there
benefit.
and running away from it, or not
No, it doesn't
understanding
benefit,
something and
right?
then getting understanding from it.
No, it doesn't benefit.
It doesn't benefit.
Now,
Okay.
are you saying that
So
now we
here's
don't
what I'm
need
going to ask you to
religions
do.
anymore? Now
Here's
we
what I'm
should
going to
kick
ask
them
you to
out?
do. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do here. Go, get a ticket, go to Africa, be in a safari. Once you see if you're in the safari and you see tall grass move, don't run.
What?
I want you to go to an African safari. You just walk around by yourself into that safari. If you see tall grass move, you have no evidence for it, that it could be a lion, it could be a predator. Don't run.
What does that have to do with my argument? I don't know.
Because that
Sir,
was
that
my
there is something
entire
that's known as
argument to
tautology.
begin with.
There, hold on. There is something that's known as tautology. The fittest survive. Nobody denies that, right? The fittest
But,
survive. Now
but you're
the
saying what I
claim
was saying had
about
no evidence
the
behind it.
claim
That
about
was the whole
hold on.
point of my
Let me
original
clarify one.
argument,
Let me
was that we
clarify
had
one.
an original basis of, we
No, no,
had the
sir.
original.
Let me clarify one point. The claim about this single origin, the single origin, and every all the life on this planet sharing one
When did we
common
come on the
ancestor.
original origin now?
Evolution.
Now
What are you
we're
talking about?
talking now you're talking about the original organism or the origin of it. That's not evolution. And besides, we were talking about the claim that the idea that believing in something that had no evidence could have been an evolutionary benefit for us. And I proved that through that
You
analogy.
prove
I
that
proved that
what? By using what? Using natural selection?
using natural selection. It's the idea that if a being is willing to run away from grass that's moving, they're more likely to survive than a being that's staying there. Because eventually, that being could be a
How does
goddamn
that prove?
lion and eat your
How does
ass.
that prove this is wrong? How does that first look? There is four presuppositions in your argument. One thing that evolution is true. Evolution, what I mean, a tree of life is true. The second assumption is natural selection plays the main role in bringing about, explains all biodiversity of life. Third point, the third assumption is the assumption of homology, that the similarities between creatures are due to common descent. Fourth is, what's the fourth one? Yeah,
My
naturalism. There
My
are four
three assumptions,
assumptions.
my three things were in that argument were these three things. And I want you to answer which ones are going to benefit you in survival. Now, it has nothing to do with evolution, you specifically in your survival. If you were in an African safari and you see the tall grass move, do you A, see the tall grass move and run, even if it's not a lion? B, see the tall grass move and it is a lion and you run, or C, see the tall grass move, don't know if it's a lion or not, have no evidence it's a lion or not, and you stand there.
Sir, I said there is
Which
something that's
one,
known as
A, B, or
tautology.
C, is going to benefit your survival?
Sir, there is something that's known as tautology. I did explain that. The phenomena you're talking about is way back.
You're not going to answer A, B, or C.
The phenomena which could have happened, you were talking about on the basis of what you're denying my argument. You're saying that this could have
When did I
happened,
deny it?
and it could have happened millions of years before, when the evolutionary process, we were in the evolutionary process, right? While doing that, you're making four assumptions. I'm not talking about tautology. I know the fittest survive. Nobody denies, right?
I
But
wasn't
the
even talking
assumption
about
you're
the fittest survives. I'm asking you specifically, which three of those options is the best for you to make?
and
Is it A, B, or C? You say and. I'm waiting for an answer.
of course I would move, run.
You won't run?
I would run.
Okay, there you go. You just made there you go. That's the entire point.
Okay, then why people in the circus or somewhere else put their survival in risk while trying to fight these predators? Like, I mean, I've seen this
Because we
phenomena.
have figured because it's not 100% effective, but we have figured out certain ways to help our survival to where we can train these wild animals. We have come to an understanding of how they act. We have a common understanding of what we can do to make them behave. And sometimes it goes awry. That's why they're more willing to do it. It's not that they don't understand the risk of why they
Uh,
do it.
uh,
They have an
what,
understanding and training of how to do it. But this
what about when we do not, when we haven't trained them and we still go for it just
Well,
to
you have a good
just
chance
to
of dying.
just to have a fight?
Yep.
Sorry.
They win the Darwin Award. They probably going to end up dead.
Yes.
That's another gene
Then
that's not going to pass
what
on.
led him to
So it helps us
what
out
led them to
automatically
do
right
that?
there.
What led them to do that?
What I don't know what led them to do that. Stupidity,
There you
probably.
go. There you go.
Yeah,
So there you
probably
go.
stupidity.
You're proving my
It's
point. So you're
probably
assuming,
stupidity.
which I'm not denying, by the way, but it doesn't have all the answers.
Yeah, I'm not demanding that has all the answers. I'm not saying that
Absolutely.
evolution is
So
a perfect process. Yeah, there's going to be stupid beings.
you can't deny this research based on this assumptive
Yeah, well, Oliver said, yeah,
scientific data.
it's probably arrogance.
No, it's not. It's not. Believe me,
Really?
it's not. It's not. It's
Hey,
not.
sticky lady, watch me
Seriously.
take down this
Because
alligator by
look, sir. Look, I'll tell you this. If naturalism are the lenses you're gonna put on your eyes, yeah, then you
Yeah.
can't see anything that's supernatural. If you put on the red lenses, then you can't see the color green. Okay? No matter how much evidence is, no matter how much, I mean, proofs are provided to you, still you're still not gonna see or accept anything that's supernatural because you have already wore the lenses of naturalism. That's exactly what most of the atheists are doing. They see everything in nature, therefore they conclude that everything must have a natural explanation, which is not necessarily true.
No, it's that we went through nature. We have methods of knowing what is true and what's more reliable on that way, and then we can make that assumption. If you can prove that something is supernatural and have a method in showing it, we would believe it. That's why I was trying to get to you on the three basic
Okay,
assumptions.
but still,
Here are the
you will
three.
not deny, you would
Let
not
me give
disagree.
you the three basic assumptions that we all must make in order to this. And I'll tell you this: the supernatural can fall in one of these. The first one, we live in a universe. Simple. We live in a universe. Two,
Yes.
two, there are ways to figure out truths in the universe. We're able to figure out the universe. There's ways to do that.
What's the second one? Repeat it. What's the
We're,
second one?
we're, we're, there are ways to figure out, there are truths or ways to figure out how the universe works. Second assumption, simple. The third assumption is very good, and this is how you have to prove your supernatural methods in order to figure out these truths
The word proof
that have a
implies
predictive that have
any
a
empirical.
predictive
The proof
a
implies the
predictive
word proof
are more
implies that you
beneficial
have to
and
have some
conditional
empirical evidence for
to.
it. Now, can you allow me to talk? I said the word
Will you let
proof
me finish?
implies
Are you let
that
me
you have
finish
to
the
have
third
some.
assumption there?
Now, the word proof, I'm going
You're
to
not.
answer all of them. I'm gonna answer all of them. Okay.
How
Let
can
me
you
let
answer
me
all
know
of them?
one.
How can you answer all of them if you don't let me finish the third one?
Universe. Are you gonna answer? Are you gonna allow me to talk? Okay. The first one was you live in a universe. Of course.
Yeah, let him talk. He's going to try to answer all three right